so I don't have to go into that. And you see, you've all got the paper here. It's on page 39 of the manual. Journal, okay. In workshops you call it a manual, at conferences it's a journal.
That's because you journey.
Well, since you did it, Marsha,
You need to try
what I want to do is go into all the details. I'm just going to talk more in general functional terms. I'm going to save the details for the workshops. The triune brain is a model developed by Paul MacLean, basically saying we've got three types of brains. Charles spoke about that. Reptilian brain, which I refer to as the instinctual brain. Everything that happens in the reptilian brain is a matter of instinct. The issues associated with it are instinctual. To me, that's why when I look at the reptilian brain and when working with the reptilian brain, the issues associated are the more spiritual, because the instinctual nature of them makes them so ingrained into your psyche that it is very hard to actually know that you have them. Then we have the limbic brain on top of it, which simply is the emotional brain. This is more a psychological place where you have all those mental, emotional issues going on in your life, and I associate that. I think it has a strong correlation with the system of the 7 chakras, which all have like psychological, well, to me is a complete system of psychology. And then you have the neo-mammalian brain, which is like the thinking brain. It's where you make, where you have all those thinking capacities. And for instance, Charles spoke about this morning the ability to compare. And for instance, if you come here, for me, I've come to Maryland for the first time in my life, and I'll walk outside and I see some trees. And I've never seen trees in Maryland before. They're a species of tree that I've never seen before, but I still know they're trees. I've never had an experience of that tree, but I can compare that with a previous experience. And this is one of the functions that the neocortex does. It gives you that ability to compare. Okay, so with reflexes is a type of motion. And what I'm going to talk about is motion through the 3 brains, so you can see the difference involved. In the neocortex, it's more conscious motion. If I want to decide I want to pick up this book and I consciously make a decision, it's something what I'm wanting to do, it's the focus of my attention, I do that. On the other hand, as I'm standing here talking to you, my hands are making all these movements, I'm pacing up and down, and this is a habit. And habits are associated more with the limbic brain. Because with habits, they're things that you've learned. For instance, someone was reading this journal just before we came in here, and she said, when I go and open my fridge door, I open it here and open it. I don't open it there, I don't open it there, but I open it there. But I don't think about it, that she learned that she had to open it there. But once she learnt that, and the motor patterns get downloaded into your limbic system, specifically it's the basal ganglia that does that, then it's just like, you need some milk for your coffee, you're not making your coffee, you don't even think about it, out comes it. And you've done it without thinking, it's just a habit. And that's what the more limbic type of motion is. Now with the reptilian brain we have reflexes. And reflexes are a type of motion that there must be some kind of sensory input to stimulate it. and then that input goes into the brainstem, cerebellum and all those areas, and then comes out as a motor response. Now, traditionally when we look at, say, things associated with reflexes, they're more vestibular-oriented reflexes. Now, someone asked me earlier, is vestibular, is that a sense? Well, vestibular is a sense. The vestibular apparatus right next to the cochlea, which takes in your auditory sound. And what the vestibular system does is measure the movement and position and acceleration of your head in space. Sends that information into your nervous system, and then your nervous system reacts. For instance, those of you who have done some kinesiology might have heard of the vestibular ocular reflex. And what that is, as your head moves, your eye muscles move to compensate for your head movement, so you can keep in focus whatever you're looking at. For instance, if I look at that sign up there ahead of me, I can look at it. If I move my head like this, my eyes are moving opposite to the way my head's moving. That is the vestibular ocular reflex. And so the sensory input that goes in is actually the movement of the head. And then it goes into the brainstem, cerebellum and all those areas in the reptilian brain, comes out and then moves the eye muscles that move the position of the eye in the orbit. And so all reflexes follow that pattern. There is always some kind of sensory stimulus that stimulates them. Now, when I first started learning about primitive reflexes and working with them, and I picked up the standard book that most people start with, is by Sally Goddard, and you know, and then I've worked out soon enough that, you know, some of the reflexes were due to the movement of the head, which is the vestibular system, and some of them are due to, like, either touching the body, which is somatosensory, or the actual movement and position of the muscle, which is proprioception, which is a form of somatosensory input. It follows neurologically the same pathway as this somatosensory input. Okay. So I got to thinking about it. Well, you know, I meet people, especially in England, where they do a lot of work with that. And, you know, I started to realise, well, what about visual and auditory? All these types of inputs can stimulate a reflex. Now, we have this thing called primal or primitive reflexes, and what a primitive reflex is, purely by definition, it's a definition, by the way, is a reflex that is active when you are born. It's a reflex you should have when you are born. That is the definition of a primitive reflex. So you have some reflexes that come on in utero and turn off. So they're uterine reflexes, they're not primitive reflexes. Now, another thing that Charles was speaking about today was he spoke a lot about survival. And whether we like it or not, our brain is geared up for survival. Fear and rage are survival mechanisms. If you know someone's going into fear, they're acting as if their life is in danger. That is how the brain is acting, because that's what the fear response is for. And also the fight, it's like the rage is like you're fighting for your life. You know, often, you know, there's a lot of anger and rage gets over, you know, can commonly come as a fight for resources. You know, if there's a berry tree and two tribes want the fruits off the berry tree, they end up fighting for it. And even today, I think a lot of the problems in the world get down to a fight for resources. Anyway, so the Moro reflex is essentially a startle response. When it is in balance, we should have it. You know, if we see, you know, a giant elephant bearing down on us, if we're not startled and scared, then there's something wrong. You know? Do you know what I mean? Or if there's a big tiger coming bounding towards you when you've got lunch written on your t-shirt, you know, you're not scared. Well, if you're not scared, all you end up is tiger lunch. You know what I mean? And that is not beneficial for our survival or that of the species. Because those that ended up as tiger lunch never got to pass on their genetic material or had less chance of it, and so therefore they had more problems. Well, they didn't. That sort of thing got bred out genetically, and people with the correct startle and fear responses reproduced because they survived. And so these things are developed genetically as, you know, beneficial survival mechanisms. So the Moro reflex, commonly, you know, like working in the field of kinesiology, and I work in the same area as Charles does, is that it's come down to one of the most important things to work with. And it seems to be like, you know, I know a lot of people around the world now just think, well, we've got to deal with this first before we do anything. Because if this is still on, anything else you do is not, it's not going to hold on a deep level, especially when doing all this brain work. So we started with a vestibular-mediated Moro reflex. How many people have seen this test for it? No? Well, could I have a volunteer? Who thinks they might have it? Right, the Moro reflex. Everybody has it. You do it? Sure. All right, well, come on. Let's see. Okay, we'll get you to stand here, turn around. Okay, feet together. Head back. Back. Back, back. Head back. That's head back. How do you say that in American? Head back? Chin up. Chin up. Oh, okay. Chin up. All right. I'm still learning. Chin up. That sounds English.
Now that's nose up.
Okay. Put arms out like this. No, like this. Okay, relax. Relax your arms.
Oh, except for your back.
Fly away.
Okay. Chin up. Close your eyes. Okay, so I'm here. I'm going to catch you. Tip back. Oh, he hasn't got it. Anyone else? Arms like this, hands down, relax, head back, close your eyes. Okay, I'm going to catch you. Oh, I got another one. All right. Anyone else? Yep. Jennifer?
You're going to catch me.
The whole class is falling for you.
I told you needed to.
Go ahead, there's more seats over there.
Okay, you ready? Back. She's got it.
Yay!
And that was very hard for her. She was like, even before she went to go back, she just went into fear. Okay, and so it's the movement of the head that actually stimulates that, because it's the movement of the head is a sensory input in that test. You see, and so yeah.
You're saying that when her hands went like that,
Yeah.
that was the tip off.
Well, that was just the motor response.
Okay.
Okay, motor response, movement of muscles in some way. And you can typically find the areas that will affect will be body muscles. You know, check the spinal muscles. So you can go around after you've done the test, go and test the muscles, and they're every single muscle you test is completely off. You can also, the neck muscles as well is another area it can be. And you've got this thing called the tonic neck riding reflex. Okay, and so you've got the vestibular neck riding reflex is that when your head moves, that your neck moves to keep your head upright. So if I go like this, and my head's going like this, typically it'll go like that, and that's the vestibular neck riding reflex.
Yeah. Hugo, what's the difference? Why do some people exhibit that or not? Is one an imbalance or not?
Well, it's an imbalance. It's usually due to some kind of problem, you know, trauma in the early life.
But then, isn't it survival? Wouldn't it be appropriate for my body to go into fear of falling backwards?
Well, not if you know that I'm going to catch it.
So that's the cortical function overriding.
Yeah, I guess you could think of
something like that.
And there's other ways of testing it too. You get someone to lie down and you lift on the edge of a table with their head out and you hold it, you just lift their head up and drop it and catch it again. And then they go like this. You get the same response.
Yeah, right.
Aren't babies afraid of falling down?
Yeah, well, the motor reflex is on when they're born, but it should turn off.
It should turn off.
Yeah.
At any particular time.
I come not off the top of my head. My laptop, I'm having such a disaster this trip. I got to Salt Lake City and my laptop died, which I'll be able to pull up the information for you.
Well, that's not bad.
You know, and then I got here and my video camera died. And I'm not going to turn my projector on. Yeah, you watch, I'll turn it on after this talk and it'll work. Yeah.
So because this is a vestibular response, is it then different if somebody has their head in alignment with their body?
Now what
and
you're doing...
able to tip back and compensate by moving forward, they would be less likely to go...
No, well that would be a natural response when you're doing that, you know, because of your... This is why you get them to tip the head back. And that's what, because otherwise if you have it straight, they will tend to do that with the neck riding reflex, which is a natural thing, it's what it's for. It's designed to do that. Okay, so those are the vestibular reflex. Now the other vestibular spinal, typically, which is with the body, okay, there's the body move, that's right, I was talking about where it can affect. There's body muscles, the neck muscles, now also the eye muscles. And you can test that by, once you've done the test, you get an indicator muscle and get them to look up, look down, look left, look right, and look around like this. Get them to move their eyes in their orbit, and that can be off as well. And because there's this thing, you've got this back of that, and the eyes shoot up, and you know, you get this, you know, and it's a matter of finding which muscles the actual is the reaction, and sometimes you need to go and clear one and then the other one will show. It won't show before you've cleared one, and sometimes you have to go and clear them all. Just to give you an example of the vestibular spinal reflex, and this is how you can do it very simply. If I stand on one foot and tip to the side like this, and my leg shoots down like that, that is a vestibular spinal reflex, okay? Because as my head moves, you know, someone walking along always falling flat in their face is not sort of beneficial for survival, is it? And you're not going to get too much done if you're always breaking your nose or something. And so when you do this, the body muscles are moving to compensate for the movement of the head. Okay?
It's all right.
So that is a vestibular reflex. Now, and so that's good, and that's what you find in a lot of people. They talk about the motor reflex. That's not new. Those of you who have done something with the primitive reflexes would have seen that. Now, also you can get visual mediated motor. And what happens here is information comes in the visual system. Most of it goes up to the cortex, as you would have seen today. Some of it goes directly down into the brainstem, interestingly enough, it goes to the areas that move, that control where the eyes move in the orbit of the eye. So we're talking about the, but you can get also, you get, so commonly people with a visual moro cannot converge, divergence, they can't do it, they can't do this. If you do that, that's actually one of the tests for it, if they just sort of their eyes shoot off to the side. And what happens is the visual input into the brain stem, again, a motor response. You can still find it in your body muscles, you can still find it in your neck muscles, because it's still like a moro reflex. So if I get some volunteers, the test for it's very easy. I can get some, maybe we'll try you again. He didn't have the vestibular, so just look straight ahead. I'm going to put my hand at your eyes, okay? So he doesn't have it, okay? Try you again. You're my back. Okay, you ready? Straight ahead. Okay. That's why I tell people I'm going to do it. Because I want to take that effect out. Okay, and if I don't, I'll do it a second time to make sure. Okay, because then once you've done it a couple of times, if they're sensitised to it, then they don't have it. But if they're not sensitised and it keeps happening, then they've got a visual moro. You're sensitised. She's got it. She's trying to convince herself. I'm sensitised. I can feel the tension. Okay, looking straight ahead. See what I mean? See the difference? That is a really active visual moro. Questions?
The one where you demonstrated standing on one foot and
Yeah, that's a vestibular spinal reflex.
right. At what time should that leave?
The vestibular spinal reflex should never leave.
Meaning, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. I've taught educated kindergarten children, and some of them can do that, and others start to fall, and they don't.
left in here
They simply fall.
Okay, well then they don't have vestibular spinal reflex, and that's the problem. That's the problem. Because the vestibular spinal reflex is not the moro reflex.
But you said up front, so it's probably up front.
Okay, the vestibular spinal reflex is a reflex that should exist. Now, and because like falling flat on your side, if you've got kids that do that, well then they need serious work, because you've got to get that vestibular spinal reflex back online.
Actually, it did come online.
It did.
When we began work, I thought, oh, they're falling down. Something's happening here.
Right. Okay. Now I'll just talk about something else about the vestibular system. I wasn't wanting to go into too much details about the anatomy of it, but I'll tell you this. There are 5 receptors in the vestibular apparatus. Okay, 5. 2 of them only measure when the head goes like this. Okay? Another one only measures when the head goes like this. Okay? And another one only measures when the head goes like this.
Turn it off.
Okay? And another one only measures more linear motion, just when the head's going in a straight line, up or down, whatever, in any direction.
I had that one go out really bad on the thing right here.
Did you?
Yeah.
Often in the plane you can feel it. Car sickness, anything like that is a vestibular imbalance of the stimulus.
Is that the same as when, say, you're going through a tunnel and it looks like you're not moving, the tunnel's moving? Is that? Or if you're like at a car wash, you feel that you're moving, but you're not moving, it's moving.
I haven't thought of that. I'd have to think about that actually. Because there's some visual, that might be, yeah.
Visual.
Yeah. It's not, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go there at the moment. But anyway, so understanding that, if someone can do this, well, great. Why don't you test them if they can do that? Because sometimes someone can do this, But they can't do that. You know what I mean? Or going backwards too, because completely when the head's going forward and backwards, this is why there's two receptors. One's for when the head's going forward and one's when it's going back. Okay? And also the other one is like this, when you go around like that.
You mean turning around as well?
Yeah, because it's when the head's moving, when you're saying, like saying no. It's called the horizontal semicircular canal, and it only activates when the head's going, you know, this, like this. And that you've got all these like semicircular canals, and they all sit like this, and they're all in different planes. You see? And they only get activated when it's actual movement in that plane, due to how the whole thing's set up.
Well, in ballet, you learn to spot.
Well, that's so you don't.
So you don't follow.
Well, that's right. You're keeping your head still when they spin it quickly, so you're not activating the vestibular system too much. Because if they had their head going around with their body all the time, they would just get dizzy because of the vestibular system. That's why they do that. Sorry?
I thought that was part of the dance.
Wish.
Trying to take a step out of the house and it's dark, and you've got the door open a little bit, and you go to put your foot down, and the ground is not there. Is
And
that,
you go.
yeah. Is that the lack of, or you have that reflex?
No, because you're expecting there's something and you haven't seen it or something. But what happens after that, because your head's moved far forward than you expect it to, will be a response to the. Now, if you just keep going, go like this, and then go flat in your face, well, then you might say, well, maybe there's something to look at. But if you like stumble down and then your feet stumble like this, well, that's a normal vestibular spinal response, and that's working for you to save you from falling flat in your face. You understand what I mean?
But if you go all the way down once, I mean, just like, I just almost got boom.
Did you fall on flat on your face?
I landed on my side.
Did you? Okay, so you couldn't compensate for that very well. Okay, so well, that suggests that there may be, I'm not saying there is, there could be something in the vestibular spinal region. Okay. All right, now we've done, okay, now we'll talk about the auditory one, and then I've got something very interesting to tell you, to share with you guys. It's not in the manual, so only people here will get. Okay. Okay, so the auditory one, again, you've got, you know, now the auditory input goes into the brain stem. It actually follows the same nerve as the vestibular, because the auditory and the vestibular are actually together in one like construction, if you like, or they're housed in the same building. Anyway, and so that goes in, and again, but this time it's an auditory response. Now, the auditory is, again, you know, this can be like, we do need an auditory startle. Like if you walk, if some loud noise goes off unexpectedly, you get startled, right? You jump, then you spin around, all these reflexes activate, you spin around to locate where you think the sound came from in your visual field, so you can see, is there a danger or is there not a danger? Okay, so the auditory moro, I need a table for this, so we'll get our 3 volunteers. I've got my backup over there. Okay. Matter of interest. Just lie on the table on your back. Okay. Now, I'm going to make a loud noise. When I make the loud noise, you're going to jump up and stand up straight and look at the face. Okay? Okay. You got that? Okay, so I'm going to make a loud noise. Got it? I'm just trying to sensitise him. Get up now!
You were in the army, right?
He's got a bit of a hint here of an auditory moro. And I had a sense of it because I was watching him lying down there, and he was quite tense. You know, I could see tension in his body. And so he didn't have the first two, but there is something auditory, you know. Because I tell you, when it's imbalanced, they just get up, and it's like they get up in slow motion and just stand. Oh yeah, what can you know?
My kids.
And it is very different. Thank you. We'll try our we'll just get in the range of possibilities here. Okay, you ready? Make a loud noise. Get up now!
She's over that.
I was focusing on getting up fast.
Okay, so remember, you got to get up as fast as you can. Okay. Get up now.
That was enough.
Fight or flight.
No, I think it's flight with that one. Did you see how fast you went? I was like, don't touch. And what's interesting, because then all the senses become sensitized. Don't touch me. And this can happen to kids in the classroom. Don't touch me. Someone touches them, they freak out, start misbehaving.
Yes.
You know, everything is sensitized, on alert, I'm in survival mode. And that's what happens. So now I've got through all the stuff that's in the manual.
Okay, and of course, I picked up a question. The cesarean child is particularly a reactive teacher. He touched me and the person just whisked by. So do these reflexes require a normal birth process?
The normal birth process is involved with that. And a friend of mine, what he does is that anyone that comes to him that is cesarean, he does this like some skin direction, does that skin direction thing, you know, but really hard, like try and reproduce that to, because it is, our whole thing does activate
feeling.
reflexes. There's sensory, somatosensory reflexes because it's a touch that's activating it. Okay, and always look at it. And of course you can have smell reflexes and gustatory reflexes. There's some of the primitive reflexes you've got, like the amphibian and Landau reflexes, where you're actually moving part of the body is a proprioceptive one because it's involved with muscle position and movement. Bit different to like spinal gland, which is you're rubbing down the back like this, or the bruising sucking reflex, which is, you know, around the mouth. Okay, any other questions about those standard reflexes? Okay, how much time have I got left?
What do we do about it?
Well, how do you correct it?
Hang on. What's the time?
10 after 2.
And what time do I go to?
2:45.
Oh, so I've got half an hour. Cool. How do you correct it? Well, the standard way of working with it that most people do is doing these developmental style exercises. There's a woman who does come to the States called Stefana, who does that. I'm not sure of other people coming to America. She's the only one I know of here in the States. There's plenty of people in Australia and Europe as well. There's a woman in Australia called Claire Hockey who's got some very good work to do with that. And there's also, of course, Sally Goddard and Peter Blythe in England. They've got an institute and have a big thing associated. There's a book they have that shows you all the tests and exercises. It's called A Teacher's Window into the Child's Mind, something like that, by Sally Goddard.
So that's
It should be, it's probably in the bibliography. Is it in the bibliography?
It is in the, okay.
Oh, okay. It'll be in the bibliography. Okay. I have a whole system way of working with it that involves formatting and, you know, using the formatting style of work that was originally developed by Richard Up and then extended by Charles and me. That is very effective. But, you know, that I would spend 4 days showing you how to do that. I'm not going more wanted to talk about the different aspects is so far as trying to, because people put primitive reflexes in this kind of box and don't understand it's a neurological event, and I'm just trying to explain it in terms of neurology and how I see it. Okay. And, yeah.
What's that reflex when you touch the bone and soles and things?
Oh, that's the plantar reflexes. And you've got the palm one, that's just some sensory reflex.
With the feet, they actually move it.
Yeah. And they've got others that where you hold them up and then they sort of go like this, you know, like this.
That's newborn, though, right?
Yeah. Well, that's part of learning to walk as well, you know, starting to, you know, that's walking, you know. There's a whole thing, Svetlana, she's got a really good manual, and she goes through all of these ones, and some of them you don't find in any other place.
Svetlana's teaching in Ottawa this summer in August.
Is she? Oh, there you go. She does teach around America, and I know she's going to be in summer in Salt Lake City, and probably in some other places as well. Anyway, so I've got half an hour to talk to you about the energetic mind. How many people have ever had the experience where just somebody's energy, just being in their presence, makes you, puts you into a state? Who knows that?
Just watching George Bush on the TV.
We're not going to get into American politics here. Please honour me. Okay, so now the
Next time.
what this is, and I remember once that this is how I came up with this. I was in Germany about, I must have been around a year and a half ago or something, and I was about to teach the level 2 primitive reflex workshop, which had, you know, visual and auditory moros and this type of thing. And I was walking back and I was just thinking about, there's this particular person who's involved in kinesiology, I'm not going to say where or, you know, and I was just thinking how so many people react to him. And it gets to the point that people won't even go to a course if they know that person's going to be there. And it was like, I'm thinking, you know, that's just wild. I mean, you know, and certainly when I've seen this person, I can understand that, you know, it's, you know, you can feel it, and it's in your chakra system. Okay, and so I started thinking, now how did that work? I thought, it must go through the chakra system. It has to. You know, that's because your chakras are like energetic sensory organs. Right? And so so I was thinking about it, you know, I had 10 minutes of the class to go and I was running back to my room to get some overheads. And by the time I came back, I had this whole idea of the energetic moro, and it actually worked out how it went. And I showed it to the class, and we all tried it, and it works really well. And it's like, what happens is with the chakras, they bring down information. Well, chakras are transducers of energy, right? And so they transduce energy down, and there's an interface with the nervous system. And so then this information comes through the chakras, into the nervous system, up into the brainstem, motor response. So this person, like, you know, this person that people were reacting to, they all go, oh, you know, and that's their, you know, they go into a moro reflex. And, you know, you think about, you know, when there might have been cases of abuse, of egg restriction, you know, or also some people just, I just think about your husband or your wife and they go into an energetic moro. I've seen this before, you know. Could also be children if you've got a problem child, you know. And so then, you know, so then I've sort of worked with this, you know, like over the last year and a half and come up with a really good model, actually, of how it works. Because what is also when you look at the 5 chakras, the 5 lower chakras, they're all associated with the 5 senses. They say, well, each chakra has a sense. Right. And for instance, the solar plexus chakra, I'm just doing this from memory. I think base chakra is smell, is touch. No, I think heart chakra is touch. Sacral chakra is taste. Then you've got sight in solar plexus. Heart is touch. And throat, of course, is sound. And then so I was thinking, oh, what's this, you know? And then I was talking to another friend and I was talking about the spiritual senses of, I'm going, oh yeah. And then I realised, I go, oh, well, what she's talking about were the chakra senses. Is that, you know, she was calling them spiritual senses. You know, she's going, oh, you've got the spiritual senses as well as the other senses. And then I realised, I said, well, hang on, these are like the chakra senses. And then also, so then it goes to the brow chakra, which they say is the mind. Okay. And so, and what's interesting, and now we're going to make a point of doing this, I better use it. Okay, so we'll have our throat chakra, brow chakra.
What about the crown?
What about it? Okay, is he a king? Okay. Of course, there's the crown chakra to make the 7, but I'm just talking about these 6 at the moment. Okay, so you've got the chakra senses here. And so what's interesting about this is I was reading some tantric texts. I got hold of these translations of these tantric texts and interpretations, a whole big book like this. And so I started, and it had loads of stuff about chakras in it, and also loads of stuff of chakras that are not so well known. I mean, you get plenty about the 7 chakras. They're easy to find the original tantric texts that talk about them. But then I found some that spoke about other chakras. And in particular, so if this is the brow chakra, there's this whole system of chakras up here. There's one just above it. This is called Manas. That's just above the brow chakra. This is an eye. This is an eye. This is a nose. Okay. Now, there's one in the centre of the forehead, sometimes called Soma chakra. There's one up here at the top, right there. And this, we would call it frontal chakra, but they call it, I found it, they call it, this is what they call it, Nirvana. The great name, Nirvana. Okay, and these are all mentioned in the tantric texts of however long ago they were written. And so, and it actually had some descriptions of them. And what was the interesting one was the Manas. The Manas is a chakra that integrates all the lower senses out of these lower 6. And, you know, commonly they have, they say that each chakra has a certain number of petals. Have you heard that expression?
Yes.
Number of petals. Or if you pick up other books, maybe Richard Ardle, Barbara and Brennan, they sort of talk about cones. It's the same thing. It's just the way you have to understand. In India, so many years ago, their way of the culture of their language is very different, and they will speak in a way that's very descriptive. And if you translate it directly, you know, it has so many petals, it's like a flower. But what it's saying, it has so many different cones. then when you read through the tantras and they talk about these lower chakras, for instance the base chakra, they say has 4 petals, then it has like a seed mantra, which has a symbol, but then each petal has its own mantra, own symbol and own issue associated with it. What's interesting, and up you go, sacral chakra has 6 petals or cones, 6 symbols, 6 different things, and you know, when you go up, I think it's 10 of the solar plexus, 12 and 16, something like that. The brow chakra has 2, which is interesting for the mind, left and right, you know, as Charles was talking about the hemispheres. And then you've got the Manas chakra just above it, and it has 6 petals, and it doesn't have symbols, they each have a colour, and each is the colour of the lower chakras. So each petal, and each petal that is a colour of the lower chakra represents the sense of the lower chakra.
Sorry, can you say which one it's on?
The Manas.
The Manas.
So what's the 6th petal?
Well, it's the brow of the mind.
Okay. Does it see dead people all the time?
I told you we needed that. I'll take you with everywhere I
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I get 10% though.
No, you pay me too. Okay. So this is interesting. So that then I started realising, hey, there's a lot more to this energetic moro than just simply a chakra into the nervous system. There's obviously a relationship with the Manas, which means it's going to be a bit more to it than that. Because what's interesting is that the energy they say that takes it up, well, I'll have to talk a little bit about nadis now. Does anyone know what a nadi is or not know? Who's heard of it? Who hasn't? Okay, nadis are like a type of channel, just like meridians. Meridians, if we look at our 14 meridians with acupoints, they're a channel that contains chi, right? Everyone knows that. It's nothing new. So the nadis are a different type of channel. They contain prana. And what they do is they distribute, if you like, or carry the energy that's brought down through the chakras. So whenever you're working with yoga, for instance, is a classical example of working with nadis, because that's what they do. When you're doing all these postures in yoga, you're activating the nadis, which in turn, like you read these yoga texts and they tell you, well, this posture is good for this chakra. And you think, how does it do that? Well, it does it by, you take the posture, it affects the nadis, and through the nadis, it affects the chakras. Okay? And so these nadis connect the chakras up. Okay? And so there's the main one is the so-called central channel, which I'll draw in front of you. Which is called Trishulna. A couple of people here can go and start with that. And but anyway.
The Trishulna is a nadi?
Yeah.
I thought that was like the main channel that led everything up and down here.
Yeah, but it's a nadi.
Oh, okay.
It's a nadi. It is, well,
It moves.
Nadi means channel, by the way. That's what it means. To the Indians, they consider meridians, they would call them nadis. They consider your veins as nadis. You know, and your arteries as nadis. It just means a channel. But what we know as a channel, okay, Sushumna is a bit different because it does have Kundalini energy go through it. Okay, which is a different type of force than the pranic force.
What's the difference between prana and chi?
Well, they're like different dimensions, if you like. And this is, I mean, I look at it as different dimensions, okay? And like chi is on a meridian level, and it's interesting is that, and that's what they work with in China, but they didn't work with that in India. In India they work with prana and kundalini and nadis and chakras. And so they're, you know, like when you look at all of the movements and postures of Tai Chi, for instance, that works with the Chi, doing this movement, sort of a movement-based, you know, like, I mean, I've done it a couple of times, or Qigong or something like that. And the, whereas the prana, and even when we, mudras are a form of affecting prana through nadis. So when we hold finger modes, that's how they work. They're not just like someone's great idea. I mean, you look at some of those pictures from India of yogis sitting there going, holding their structural mode, you know. It's structural. Do you know what I mean? And they already, and they've got all these mudras and stuff, and, you know, you can buy books on them. You know, you can get that information. And then of course, we also might then go and touch an acupoint and test the muscle. We might touch a mode and test the muscle. And we're actually accessing stress through different dimensions. So when we format by holding modes and acupoints, we're combining the two. And that's you know, that's well, I think formatting is so clever. And as far as I know, the formatting that I worked with was developed by Richard Up in AP. Yeah.
The Indians did have a system of acupuncture in place.
Yeah, I've got a book on Vedic acupuncture, but it's just not so widespread. And you know, they had the old silk roots and stuff there. I'm sure there would have been a transfer of an end of information, but it's just not. I'm just talking more generally. You know, when you go to India, you go to Ayurvedic medicine and stuff like that, and where you know, or you do yoga. Where you go to China or Asia and you're doing acupuncture, acupressure, and all this type of thing, TCM.
What's your definition of formatting?
Formatting's like when you're holding a mode and acupoints simultaneously, so you access the two frequencies as once. And you, like the reason what we're doing with kinesiology and the muscle test, we're looking for stress. So we're just using it a way. It's like a whole language. And you know, specifically in the AP workshop, the brain one, Richard really did a big formatting thing in that, and then Charles and I sort of took on from there, and we've created this whole like complete system. And you think, you name a nucleus in the brain, we've got a format for it. Or if we haven't, we'll get one. We'll work one out. Okay. So anyway, so Sushumna. Then you've got the left and right channels of Ida and Pingala. Okay. Sometimes they're drawn like that, sometimes they're drawn like this. It depends on what state they're in. So before anyone says, oh, don't they go like that, they can. Sometimes they go straight up. Okay. Now, so the left channel Ida takes the information from these lower chakras up to the Manas chakra. So you get information from a chakra, goes to Ida, goes to Manas chakra, goes to brainstem, motor response.
Does Pingala send it back down then?
No.
When they talk about the Hera chakras, is those what they're talking about here?
Hara.
No, because the Hera's go the knees and the
That's something else. I think Andrew's going to be talking about that, Hara. Not me. So I'm just talking about it. But it's not, no, these are like, this is a base chakra, you know, this is the sacral chakra, this is the solar plexus, the heart, the throat. Okay. Now, okay, so we're going to have to figure out, well, how do we know if someone's got an energetic mind? Well, guess what? I'm going to have to show you the modes and how to access it. Because I've come this far, if I didn't do that, I'd have a mutiny. Fine, I've always wanted to have a mutiny, so I'm not going to. I've never had one before.
I try so hard.
Have you?
He tries hard.
He does. It just doesn't work. Everyone ends up laughing at it.
I'm in that failure cycle.
Cancel.
Okay. So who thinks they might have an energetic mono and it could be issue specific, so it could be related to a particular person or event in their current life or even in their past? Okay. You get me all the time.
I know. That's why I was happy.
Energetic mono could be a phobia or something. I mean, it could be the same thing.
Yeah, could be. Could be anything is possible. Head there. Okay. So first thing I'm going to have to share with you is the reflex mode developed by a woman in Germany. And since I never argue with German women, well, who wants to argue with German women? Whose name is Helga. Not Olga. Helga. Okay. Okay, so she showed this to me and I adopted it and it works because there's people all around the world using this now. So let's just get your pinky in the web of the finger between these two. Okay, you got that? That is the mode for reflexes.
Which two fingers, Hugo?
Ring pinky.
No.
Pinky to ring
Do you
pinky.
do your thumb on the same hand like that?
No. It's
It has to
pinky.
be
It's pinky.
Pinky and
Thumb is a neutral touch.
Okay, that's good. Do you have to use your left hand?
Oh, I use either hand.
It doesn't matter which
I
hand.
always use this hand, put it that way.
Left and the right.
Okay. Okay. So that's that. So then you pause like that. Okay.
This is for energetic mono
This
reflex.
is, that is just reflex mode. Okay. Then for energetic mono, there's an indicator point. Then you pause lock governing 20. If governing 20 is active, you have an energetic mono, like she does.
Governing 20.
And it is very active because there's no indicator muscle now. So I'm just going to do a quick thing to get the indicator muscle back. And do this. Don't worry, this is called powers of stress.
It's okay.
The way I do it.
She took a breath.
Do you have the drop chakra and K27s, Hugo, or?
I'm on governing 24.5, which you consider the in point for I'm also on governing 20 and K27s, that's right.
And that's your powers of stress,
Oh, that's a form.
de-stressors.
That's a simplified form.
Yeah. Right.
So this can be quite powerful. I've already got the 10-minute thing ahead of me, so there's really only 9 minutes.
We've got about 5 probably.
Who's splitting hairs now?
Oh, that's what I learned that from Anna.
He's 20 and 24. And 25. It's a whole system.
Adam always gets
24.5.
surprised whenever he splits a hair and gets a single thing on the board. Now I get one.
What?
I only got one.
Powers of stress, right? Yeah, you know powers of stress.
What are you doing now?
I'm just pulsing some points to try and get some, equalise the energy so we can actually use the indicator muscle.
Are you on gallbladder 1?
Gallbladder 1's and governing 23.
Governing 23.
All right, cool. You want to take a circle? Cool. Thank you. All right, so now we've got that. So now we've got the energetic aura. Now we want to see, well, which chakra's being involved. So there's a couple of ways you can do it. A quick way is like you can just CL the lower chakras, and it's usually, you find it's one of the bottom three. So it can be like base chakra, sacral chakra. Okay, so the sacral chakra is involved. Take the circle, please. Sacral chakra. I mean, the first thing people say, sacral chakra is sex, you know. But that's a part of it. It's like